Hey everybody, I'm back today with this week's Creative Scrappers Reimagined. Here is the sketch we're going to work with today. I am going to take a minute and show you my products. This is the beautiful Teen Dude collection from Scrappin Happy Studio, and here's my photos. So we're going to scrapbook my little boy. He's not little anymore, he's taller than me, and we're going to talk about the fact that he is crazy double jointed and that he can do that with his foot and his thumbs, and we call him Pretzel Boy. I'm going to be using this printable collection, and I also have a collection of epoxy flares from the shop. I'll link the shop up down below. The paper and embellishments are printable, but this is the part I love about them. They are sized and ready to go for 8.5 by 11. So if you have just a regular printer, not a wide format printer, but just a regular printer, you can print these at home without any problems. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with all of these papers. I'm going to grab my guillotine trimmer and I'm going to trim these papers down. And, not my guillotine trimmer, just my regular trimmer. And then I'm going to take the branding strip off this paper. This is just my favorite coconut swirl basil cardstock from a cherry on top. And then I have all of those beautiful patterns. So I'm going to go ahead and cut some of these patterns down, and I'm going to choose a few patterns. I'm going to cut a pattern for my photo to map my photo. I really like that red one. I think that's the one that I go with. And then I'm going to show you how we can take these 8.5 by 11s and papers and use them to span across an entire 12 by 12 layout. I'm just going to flick through them. You're going to be able to see all the different colors, and I'm going to pull a couple of the ones I think are going to go really well. I'm going to start by using these two. So I'm going to map my photo with the red, and then for that larger block of paper that's in the sketch, I'm going to use that green or blue aqua chevron pattern. So what I'm doing is I am taking the 8.5 by 11 papers, and I am going to cut 6 strips. The strips vary in size from a 1 inch, 1/2 inch, and 1/4 inch, and I'm cutting 2 strips of each pattern. So that will give me a total of 8 strips of paper, 2 each of 4 patterns. I'm going to ink all of the edges up with Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink because I really felt like that was a perfect ink color for this line of papers. And then you can see the seam, where I'm placing the seam is where that blue paper is going to be. So you won't even notice the seam at all. And we're going to work with the top of that so that the entire layout is cohesive. I know I have 1 inch I need to make up for at the top of that blue paper. I'm just inking the edges, and then I'm going to go on to the next 2 strips, inking the edges, overlapping them to create a 12-inch border across the bottom of my page. And I am using my handy dandy T-square ruler to go ahead and make sure that the strips are straight and that they match up perfectly. So once I get that blue chevron paper down, you're not going to know that these aren't 12-inch strips of paper. Now we can just go ahead and place that larger block of paper. Again, using that T-square ruler to get it nice and straight. This sketch for today is incredibly linear. It's very linear, so we want to make very sure that everything is as straight as we can make it. There is a circle element to it, but for this part of the layout, everything's very, very straight. Now I'm taking these last 2 strips of paper. They are just the last 2 patterns. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and place them at the top. So this deviates from the sketch. That's okay. but it gives the top of this paper, the top of the page, the same kind of look as the bottom, and it helps us to fill in that gap created by the 8.5 by 11 inch paper. And it's going to fit just right in there. And then we have these two kind of rows. And that also helps us to be able to add more pattern to this page because the layout design is quite simple. So having a little pop of color up at the top really helps to bring the whole page design together. The sketch shows a circle element. And so what I did was I'm just going to grab one of my Creative Memory circle cutters and use it almost as a as a tracing tool to be able to trace that circle element. The sketch that calls for the title to kind of band and be a circle around that, we are going to change that up because I'm going to fill that circle with embellishments and epoxy flares, and then I'm going to have a little gap between the circle and the pattern paper strips at the top, and that's where I'm going to put my title. Now I'm adding this another row really light pencil mark here. And that really light pencil mark is going to help me to add my finishing detail at the end. I lost some of that footage, but you'll be able to see when we get to that part. I'll tell you what I did, and you'll be able to see how I finished off that edge on the right side of my page. So now I'm going through all the embellishments. I already have them cut out, and I'm going to play around with placement. I know I want to fill that circle with more of the circles and stars and the gears that come in the collection. And then I know that I want to work on the bottom. The bottom calls for 3 circles and then a nice big block of journaling and then another photo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2 larger layered circles. I'm going to do my journaling, and it won't be as much as is in the sketch because I also have a larger photo than what the sketch calls for. I'm just going to go through and kind of decide where I want all of these different pieces because there are lots of different sized circles and different sized gears. I am able to kind of layer them up and create a more layered, clustered look to these areas where the circles are. The embellishments that come with this collection are what I would call boy mama staples. Gears, arrows, stars, circles, just really usable. Any theme will work. Bright, colorful elements that are perfect for any of my boy mamas out there that are scrapbooking. And they are the way that they're set up. You can print your papers in your embellishments, and if you run out of embellishments, you can totally print more. I love that option. So I'm not going to run out of my favorite embellishments that I like to use with my papers. So you can see here how I'm just mixing and matching the elements, following that line until I have a nice circle with all the different elements that are all in this kit. And then I also added an epoxy flare up at the top there that just says Home Life. I liked having that up there just as my last little visual triangle. So we have that big circle that's really clustered. There'll be a cluster at the bottom, and then I just added that epoxy flare in the upper right hand corner for a little bit of balance. Now I'm just going to go through, I'm going to take all of these clusters kind of all apart again, ink them up, add some dimension with some tabby dots, and I'm going to add my journaling here. And I'm going to add a little cluster around my journaling. And then remember that pencil line that I put down down the side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my Nuvo drops. I grabbed 3 Nuvo drop colors that perfectly match this collection. They are English Mustard, a Walnut Stain, and Lady Liberty. And I'm going to dot Nuvo drops down the right side of my page, just little drops, so they look almost like little brads or tiny enamel dots. So that's the part of the video I don't have, and you'll see that at the end in the close-ups, all the little Nuvo drops, because I dotted them all the way down the side of the page. Right now I'm just going through my letter stickers, and I'm going to grab just a nice black simple alphabet to add a title. I chose this alphabet because my epoxy flares do have a black in them, and I loved the idea of being able to alternate the big and the small letter stickers to keep the whole layout looking whimsical. And I also really liked the graphic look of having that black alphabet there. And I moved my title up to above the circle cluster, because if I had put that title across that circle, it would have been, the layout would not have been balanced. It would have been too bottom heavy, and there would have been a funny gap there. And so doing it this way just made it work better. Fortunately, these letters are just American Crafts letters, and they don't stick very well, so I'm good. I can just go ahead and kind of move them around a little bit, get them where I want them. Here's where I start to show you the different colors I'm going to be using of the Nuvo drops. There's the walnut stain, there's English mustard, and then we'll have the close-ups with all the drops down the side of the page. Those Nuvo drops were a little tedious, but they were the perfect finishing touch for this layout. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a fabulous Thursday. I will see you back here on my channel on Sunday. And if you are interested in any of these products, head over to Scrappin Happy Studio. I will link them up below. Bye.